This video was brought to you by Brilliant, and the first 200 people to use the link below will get 20% off an annual premium subscription. We're now into the 6th week of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and things clearly aren't going to plan for the Russian military. And as such, last week Putin apparently revised down Russia's military objectives, claiming that Russia only wanted to occupy Donbass, and Russia's attacks on Kyiv were only about limiting Ukraine's military capacity in order to defend Donetsk and Luhansk. But, as we detailed in last week's video on the subject, the idea that Russia only ever wanted Donbass is clearly nonsense. The idea that Russia committed a 40-mile-long convoy of military vehicles and sacrificed thousands of soldiers just to distract Ukrainian forces from Donbass is clearly implausible, and also contradicts an article prepared by Russian state media hailing the conquest of Kyiv, which was accidentally published on February 26th, before being quickly deleted a few hours later. Nonetheless, while things might not have gone to the original plan, Putin is clearly refocusing his attention on the south and east of Ukraine. So in this video, we're going to take a look at how the war has changed in the last week, what might happen next, and whether Russia's recalibration towards Donbass makes a peace agreement more or less likely. So over the last few days, Russian forces in both the north and south of Ukraine have been forced to retreat. In the north, Ukrainian forces have retaken territory around Kyiv, including a number of other smaller towns. And in the south, Russian forces have retreated eastwards, towards Kherson, which was captured by Russian forces in early March. And during this retreat, Ukrainian forces were even able to retake some small towns towards the north of the city. It's not all been good news for the Ukrainians though. Russian forces are making steady progress in Mariupol, where an estimated 160,000 civilians remain trapped under a Russian siege. And Russia's also achieving slight but steady progress in Donbass, where they've started moving south from the town of Izium. It's become clear then that Russia's new plan is to focus on eastern Ukraine, where they've been significantly more successful up until this point. But so far, Russian forces have still been unable to capture all of Donbass, which is the territory that Russia recognizes as the borders of the Luhansk and Donetsk People's Republics. As things stand, Russian forces have taken the majority of Luhansk, but only about half of Donetsk. Nonetheless, things still don't look that great for the Ukrainian army. The Russian army has made good progress to the north and south of Donbass, and many analysts think that they're preparing for a pincer movement, coming up from Volovanka and down from Izium to surround the Ukrainian army in Donbass. This wouldn't be an easy task for the Russians though. At the start of the war, there were 10 Ukrainian brigades with a total of 40,000 troops in Donbass, known as the Joint Forces Operation. But this number has probably increased slightly since then, given that they've likely picked up a bunch of volunteers. And beyond just their size, the Joint Forces Operation have been in Donbass since the war began in 2014, which means that they've got pretty well established defense positions in the area. Anyway, you get the idea. Ukraine is retaking territory around Kyiv, but the Russians are shifting their focus back towards Donbass, and possibly preparing to surround Ukraine's Joint Forces Operation. So how will this change in military situation affect the politics of the war? Well, as Russian forces retreat from towns around Kyiv, we're likely to see more evidence of humanitarian crises like the scenes we saw in Bucha. This will in turn probably increase pressure on the West to up the ante when it comes to military aid and sanctions, especially when it comes to Russian energy imports. As we've detailed in other videos, the EU is continuing to buy an astounding amount of Russian energy, which is indirectly funding Putin's war. In fact, on Tuesday, the EU's foreign policy chief said that the bloc had spent a massive 35 billion euros on Russian energy since the start of the war, compared to 1 billion's worth of arms sent to Ukraine thus far. Despite Zelensky's rhetoric though, the EU is yet to reach a consensus on Russian energy sanctions. Macron has come out in favour. The Italians have said that they won't veto any sanctions, but Germany is still reluctant, insisting that the economic consequences would be too severe. Nonetheless, if we see much more of the stuff we saw in Bucha, then political momentum for energy sanctions will only increase. And satellite imagery from the area around Kherson, for example, seems to show that some 800 new grave plots have been dug since the Russian forces first occupied the city in early February, which suggests there are more mass killings to uncover. When it comes to peace negotiations, though, any agreement now looks even less likely. The fact that Ukraine has successfully recaptured territory will make both Zelensky and the Ukrainian public less likely to agree to any form of compromise, because they'll believe that they have the upper hand. In fact, recent polling found that a record 95% of Ukrainians now believe that they'll triumph over Russia. Equally, the fact that Russia has been forced into focusing just on Donbass makes it harder to imagine a compromise that will be acceptable to Putin. If he had been able to successfully capture Kyiv, you can imagine him being able to go home to the Russian public with a big chunk of Ukraine and claim victory. But now, the best case scenario in the medium term for Putin would be taking Donbass. And even then, A, that will depend on the Russian military's performance over the coming weeks, which so far has been pretty unreliable, and B, Zelensky's made clear that he won't be giving away any territory anyway. So you get the idea. Russia has been forced to shift its focus towards Donbass. And while this is, in some sense, a symptom of Ukraine's impressive resistance, it does look like this makes a negotiated settlement less likely. In the near future, then, we should probably expect to see more fighting in the Donbass region, where Ukrainian forces are already stationed. As a final thing, it's worth reminding ourselves how remarkable all of this is. Before the war, most analysts, including Russian ones, thought that Russia would take Kyiv in a number of days. So it's easy to forget how far Ukraine has surpassed expectations, and correspondingly, how poorly Putin's plan has worked out for him. This video was brought to you by Brilliant. Brilliant is an online STEM learning platform that turns complex subjects into fun and interactive experiences. I actually did a computer science degree, and I've loved exploring Brilliant to refresh my skills, as well as learning new ones to help with my current job, like their superb statistics courses. But you don't need any kind of background in STEM. If you just want to spend a bit of time building your skills, then you can do it right away, with no long boring lectures like the ones I had to sit through. Sorry to my former university. Instead, you can learn through interactive games and puzzles, the kind of thing you actually want to do. There's something at all levels too, with more advanced courses on things like neural networks and even quantum computing. Just pick a course that you're interested in and get started. They're all designed by award-winning instructors and built upon the principle of active learning, so you're gaining STEM knowledge by actually doing it. Brilliant helps you learn new things and sharpen your skills. So if you want to improve with STEM, then you should sign up to Brilliant at brilliant.org/TLDREU. And the first 200 people to do so will get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Thanks so much for supporting the channel.